really my pleasure, genuinely is, to bring up our guest speaker. We're going to do a little interview style here. Daryl is a faith-based guy, as you said a little bit ago, and but he's a man of core values. His company exudes the things that we're talking about today. 2016 Orlando Business Journal CEO of the Year, named several times the best places to work in Orlando. Actually, most probably recent accomplished the Inc. 5000. He's ranked 142, right? This is a very young company, and as crazy as that chart was, if you guys didn't pay any attention to it, it was 1,300% growth against the NASDAQ, about 257%. Daryl's up about 2,700% since 13, right? So as good as they've done, he's done better. So with that said, I'd like to bring up Daryl Dixon. For me, this was a privilege. It was sort of last minute change, but he doesn't claim me, but he's sort of he's my mentor. In many ways. I've known Daryl for more than a decade, and this was a real opportunity for him. I've seen his business grow, and I'll tell a brief story. I've never said this yet, so don't kick me or anything, but first time I ever met Daryl, his CFO at that time was a client of mine, and he said, "Hey, I want you to meet Daryl," and he sort of invited me into this. Really, it was a board meeting, I guess, where they were doing, and I'm sitting quietly, kind of observing the numbers, and just to get to the point, I was watching where they're going and what they're going to do, and in my mind, I'm thinking, this guy's crazy. It doesn't work like that. You don't go like this, and then we're going to sell here, and this is how it's going to work. Well, you'll hear a little bit of his story, but it didn't happen exactly like that. I was right. It happened much sooner at different multiples than we anticipated. So with that being said, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, your background, and Valintry specifically?
Sure. I spent the first 18 years of my career working for 3 publicly traded companies. I was an executive in all 3 of them. They were in the healthcare space, and we worked with incredibly precious and valuable employees that met revenue. So we were contracting entire rehab departments out for the most part, and really focused on post-acute care. It was a great experience. The last position I had with one of those companies, I was personally responsible for 7,000 physical therapists, occupational therapists, and speech language pathologists across the United States. And what was unique about this company is it had been started by a private equity guy straight out of New York, hardcore, and he was doing roll-ups of these clinical practices across the country. And he had had many failed roll-ups before I had joined the company. And I didn't fix it, he fixed it. But what he realized was he needed values and he needed culture. And so I'll leave it at that and then come back to that for a second. I then did a stint in education, and it had always been my goal to be in my own business, to be an entrepreneur. And so in 2001, moved to Florida where I started another healthcare affiliated business in the therapy space that was called a travel staffing company, where it was a completely 100% web-based company across the United States, where we placed these individuals that, again, very valuable, very important in terms of having a culture. Finally, today, I am a owner and co-founder of a technology planning and strategic planning company, where we go into companies and look at everything from their websites, their applications on those, going down through their core software, all the way down through their security. So we look at the technology stack. And the reason we got involved in that, and we do the talent associated with that, is because I was frustrated as a small entrepreneur as to who to call to get custom programming done and to whom to get specific solutions done, specifically for analytics. Very difficult to find somebody to call. Values has been a continuous part, and when we sold our first business, those values, I am absolutely convinced, contributed significantly, well in excess of $1 million to the deal, just in terms of those values. And I'm going to tell you 3 things that I think will bring your values to life and will make a difference in your organization that I've learned over that time period. Back when we had these 7,000 clinicians, this Wall Street private equity guy, hardcore, not a touchy-feely guy at all, but he had collectively, he had over 10,000 clinicians that did not go to school to make a for-profit, publicly traded company rich. That was not their motivation in the least. They couldn't have been more opposite. And he figured out that by building the bridge through published and lived core values, we could bridge these two seeming opposing goals. And so in that company, every single meeting started with a values devotional, you could call it. We didn't call it that, but it was a values devotional. He never spoke to a group without talking about our core values. The core values were a book that he carried in his pocket at all times. It was almost a religion to him, okay? But I will give him all the credit in the world. He was able to bridge the gap to these employees, build that company into a billion-dollar company that eventually was broken up, spun off. Although NovaCare, part of the remnants is still the training center and all the primary rehabilitation associated with the Philadelphia Eagles. It was based in Philadelphia. And so I took this concept of values with me, and when I went on to 2 other companies and started my own companies, what we did is what I call take the